Morning, evening, afternoon, all. We are here with one of the biggest episodes of the year. It's only my probably like fourth episode of the year, but it's definitely the biggest so far. I'm joined by Andy Lack. Andy, how you doing today?
I'm fantastic, man. Happy Open Championship week too. I just found out off air that you are going, so I could not be more jealous of the week you have in store for yourself, my friend.
I've been tweeting this out for like 2 months, Andy, that I'm going. But yeah, no, I'm heading over, like I was saying, Andy off air, heading over Wednesday evening, and it's going to be class. I have a week-long ticket, so if anybody needs a ticket for Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, well, Monday's gone now, but Tuesday or Wednesday, hit me up. But going over Wednesday, back Monday evening, ferry over and back, and bringing the clubs in the car. So yeah, I'm buzzing for it. But like a little bit about me, like I only got into golf back in 2019. I was like, I know I've mentioned this a few times in the podcast, but I was lucky enough to go to the 2019 Masters, and ever since then, I've just fallen in love with the game. So my knowledge of the history of the game isn't that great, as good as yours, Andy. But yeah, no, I'm super excited to go over Wednesday.
You said you're bringing your clubs. Are you going to try and do like North Berwick over there or play a little?
Yeah, I might ask Max Home if he's around or something. Just maybe. I got to tweet at him this evening if he misses the cut. But yeah, no. See, the only way for me to get over Ree was to bring the car and get the ferry out of Belfast and drive over. So I may as well pack it with the clubs.
How long's the trip for you from where you're located to be able to St. Andrews?
8 hours.
Yeah, it's worth it.
Yeah, I could have flown, but I only booked it like last week. And then to rent a car over there, and there's something like problems far from you, but like issues with the train. There's cancellations at the moment, but with train cancellations and strikes, so some train services have been cancelled in the UK. So you're better off having the car. And yeah, no, it's going to be good. Hey, are you excited for the week?
Oh yeah. I would say this is probably the most pumped I've been. I feel like maybe I say this every single major championship, but this feel like the most impactful major championship we've had in decades, I guess, when you combine the fact that this is the 150th Open, Tiger, you've got the live stuff hanging over it. Rory's playing maybe the best he has in year. Spieth's playing great. Obviously, my favorite player, Xander, is playing the best golf of his life as well. So yeah, I would say 10 out of 10 in terms of my excitement level.
Yeah, I completely agree. And then the thing that made me fall in love with this week is the fact that the weather is going to be so good. I hope it's not playing too easy, but according to like all journalists there on the ground, the ground is rock hard. The greens are rock solid. We're going to have a ton of runoff, and it's going to be a thrill. And to me, I agree with you. As well as it being the most impactful one all year, I think it's the best major of the year, in my opinion. I think there's just so many variables that can come into it. If you hit a bad shot, you can make a quadruple bogey on a hole very, very quickly, or you can make a birdie on a hole, and it could be a 2 or 3 shot swing. So I'm just in love with the week.
I think you touched on something too that I think people are missing a little bit, which is that I've heard a lot of talk about how St. Andrews is, this bomber's paradise and a driver heavy golf course. I'm not sure I totally see that with the course being as brown as it is right now. Like, you actually go through a lot of the holes, and I actually think it's a course that's probably going to take driver out of play on a lot of holes for some of the biggest hitters. So to me, I think this is a golf course that is so much about placement and strategy. It's been called by Jeff Shackelford before the most strategic golf course in the entire world, which is a lofty thing to say about a golf course from a guy that's played pretty much everywhere across the world. But it's true, right? You listen to anybody who's played St. Andrews before, and the one thing that they'll always say is, I can play this course 100 times, and on visit number 101, I'll pick up something that I didn't know before.
Yeah, 100%. And that, like, using a golf architecture guy, you appreciate like the love of links, and that is the love of links. You can find yourself with a different lie, a different angle. You can hit the exact same drive 2 days in a row and be in completely different spots depending on where it bounces or where the wind is. So it is the beauty of links golf, and especially the beauty of St Andrews. It's one of the oldest courses in the world. Just when you touch there on driving distance, so Andy, listened to your podcast earlier, and I heard you mention this, and then I was listening to the Mayo Media Network as well, and I think it was Steve Bamford was on. He came up with like the top 5 in driving distance in 2015, ranked 4th, 2nd, 6th, 10th, and 10th on the leaderboard. So, and obviously 2015 was like a lot, like a bit of rain, a bit of wind. It wasn't as firm as it's going to be now. But I just thought that was an interesting take. So it's kind of like two separate takes on the issue of driving distance. But I think he aligned with yourself in some ways, and we'll delve into a little bit of what's required around the old course of St Andrews. But 3-putt avoidance, obviously massive with a lot of shared greens, and you're going to have a lot of 80, 100-foot putts, especially if the wind kicks up, the approach play, the around the green game. But I was interested to hear your take as well on the driving distance. It's a kind of a seesaw effect. Some people on one side and some people on the other side.
Right. Well, I'll say this. I don't think there's a golf course on the planet where distance isn't advantageous in some way, shape, or form. Even a course like Harbor Town, which takes driver out of your hands, longer hitters are still, you can make an argument, are going to have an advantage because they can hit their driving irons more accurate than some of the shorter guys that'll be forced to hit drivers there. Right. So it's not, my point necessarily isn't that distance doesn't matter. I think distance absolutely helps at a course like St. Andrews. And there's certain holes when you map them out where some of the way that the bunkers are placed in the fairway, having, some big carry distance obviously is going to help a lot. The only point that I would make, and you understand this as somebody who plays a lot of links golf too, is that people think that wide fairways means that positioning and placement off the tee doesn't matter. And I would say that's incorrect, right? I think at a place like St. Andrews, it's all about being on the correct side of the hole and having the right angle of attack. So I don't believe that you can bomb away aimlessly off the tee. I do believe that you could use your driver and have a strategy where you could hit a ton of drivers on this course and be able to find a lot of success if you're driving the ball well and in the right spots. But I also think there's a roadmap at St. Andrews where, kind of like what we saw with Zach Johnson, where maybe you don't hit as many drivers, maybe you do, but you're not as long of a driver of the ball. You can make up for having below average distance at a course like St. Andrews if you're absolutely elite from 125 yards, because you're going to have a lot of weird, awkward little wedge shots. It's, I was watching the 2015 final round of Zach Johnson, and it was a lot of Zach Johnson up and down from 80 yards, Zach Johnson up and down from 30 yards, Zach Johnson up and down from 45 yards. And some of the times he would putt that, and some of the times he would take it in high, and some of the times he would take it in low. Like, to me, those are the types of shots that actually characterize St. Andrews.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And the thing about driving distances, and like you mentioned, it's advantageous on all courses, but on links courses, like I saw a stat the other day, like when Tiger was playing in 2000 when he won and shot the record score, he didn't hit a bunker for, was it the entire tournament or 100 holes or something? Or
something. It was something like that, because Mark, I know it's a shocking concept for us Americans, but bunkers in the UK and Scotland, they're actually hazards.
Yes. And I was going to bring this up, and I absolutely loved your take on this, because I think you and Rick Gaiman held spaces before. This a couple of months ago, and you were talking about how easy bunkers are. And me being kind of like starstruck, I jumped in and I was like, "Oh, bunkers aren't the same." I started stumbling, but now I'm a bit more used to this, so it's a little bit easier. But I think it was Matt Fitzpatrick's caddy was on the No Laying Up podcast a few years ago, and he was giving out about the exact same thing, that bunkers are just not penal for players anymore in America. And exactly what you said in your podcast earlier, I'll probably keep referencing it throughout this, but there's just so many times where players hit it off the tee and they try to spray it as far as they can, and they're like, "Get in the bunker, please, don't be in that 3-inch rough." And Matt Fitzpatrick was like, if you have these bunkers in the middle of the fairway with rock hard fairways and you go to bomb it, you could get a bad bounce and be in a bunker up against a 3 or 4 foot lip, and then all of a sudden you're just pitching out, you're pitching backwards. And that's the beauty of it, and that's why it makes it so much better. And that's why I kind of agree with you that I don't think driving distance is advantageous because you could just bomb it off the tee and find yourself in one of these bunkers with no strategy, and all of a sudden you're just pitching out and hopefully trying to get up and down.
Right. Did you see the I think the Open YouTube channel put out like a 10-minute video of JT and Tiger last night, and I was watching JT hit practice shots out of the bunker, and he literally couldn't get out of the bunker, right? And you look at JT's sand save percentage, he's one of the best bunker players on tour. So that is what I think makes a course like St. Andrews so special. And what's cool about St. Andrews too is you can't see a lot of the bunkers off the tee. And that's why it's a course that rewards experience, right? And Tom Doak talked about this on the Fried Egg podcast about how a lot of the bunkers, they're not in visual scale and you're not able to see a lot of them off the tee, which is why St. Andrews rewards experience so much, because it's a type of course. And I'm sure you can relate to this on a lot of links courses where, you know, you play it the first time and you look back and you make bogey on a hole or whatever, and you think about it after the round and you think, oh man, I would have played this hole so much differently if I knew that was there, or if I knew that you'd get in trouble coming in from this angle. And I think that's what makes St. Andrews so great. And those are the kind of things that attract me as a golf fan and a golf viewer.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, we touched on it already. It is the idea of learning, and so learning the courses, you get to play a little bit more. Like, what are the chances? I don't know. I haven't looked this up. What are the chances of a first timer coming to play here and winning this event? Like, I know Mark Howe did last year, but coming to the Open Championship where people have, like, the Open Championship or the Old Course St. Andrews is on the Dunhill links like every year. So there are players there who have had repeated success there, and we'll dive into it in a little bit. But I think you're 100% right in that compartment. So I suppose then, just moving on, when you're looking at, I suppose, making bets, or I know you guys play a lot of DraftKings over there, what statistics or what are you looking at? Is there any trends that you've recognized?
Yeah. So, you know, I'm generally not a huge trends guy, but I have started to pay attention to them a lot more at the majors. And I just recorded a podcast last night with Dave Tyndall, which should be coming out in a couple hours. And he's like the king of trends. And I think a lot of the things that he's talked about, like, for me, the way that I look at trends is this a coincidence, or does this also make logical sense in my head? Like, a good example of this one is the recent form thing, right? Where it seems like there was this run from like 2000 to 2013-ish where it was either Tiger or Phil winning the majors, or someone like Ben Curtis or Todd Hamilton, where you had all these random major winners. And now, over the last like half decade to decade, we haven't gotten a lot of random major winners at all. I mean, 9 of the last 10 were ranked in the top 40 in the official World Golf Rankings for the Open. Same thing with all the other majors, right? Even if you're not like an elite player, you're still like a Shane Lowry or a Francesco Molinari, who are top 30, top 40 players in the world. And I think because of that, you know, Jack Nicklaus came out today and said golf is deeper as it's ever been, right? There are more good players right now than there's ever been. So the one thing that I started paying attention a lot more to, more so in terms of who can actually win the tournament, is, to me, you need to be coming in playing peak golf. And that would be probably my concern with some of the live guys, is that there just hasn't been a lot of historical precedent, at least recently, for guys not having a good season and then coming in and winning a major championship. I just think it's too hard to win a major championship with how deep golf is now. The one stat from Bamford that stood out to me, I don't know if you saw this, but like 15 of the last 21 Open winners, which is over 70%, have won a tournament this year, right? So I think one thing I've learned over the past year with the majors is not trying to get as cute as I have in the past, and putting a lot more credence to, okay, let's dumb it down. Is this guy playing peak golf right now?
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. And actually, just give me your take then. So I know that you didn't watch too much of the Renaissance Club. How much emphasis or weighting do you put on the fact that if a player missed a cut at the Renaissance Club?
So
is that a big deal, or?
No, that's a good question. And I kind of ran into this when I was thinking about what was the tournament for the PGA, the Byron Nelson. So the one thing that I look at that I care about is the ball striking, right? So an example of what happened at the Byron Nelson is a guy like Will Zalatoris missed the cut at the Byron Nelson the week before the PGA Championship. Now, he hit the ball great at the Byron Nelson and missed the cut on the number, but he lost like 4 or 5 strokes putting. And then what does he do the next week? He contends at the PGA Championship, ultimately losing in a playoff to Justin Thomas, right? So for me, like, I don't care as much as if you miss the cut, as well as how did you hit the ball. So like Scotty Scheffler is a good example of this. Yeah. Scotty Scheffler missed the cut, but he still hit the ball great. He just lost a lot of strokes putting. It's a little bit tougher. Like, for example, guys like JT or Morikawa, those guys didn't hit the ball as well, and they did miss the cut. But the reason why I'd probably give those guys a pass is those guys caught the wrong side of the draw, and there was such bad weather conditions at the Renaissance Club for, half of those guys that I think with a guy like JT, where he got to like 6-7 over early in his second round, I think probably JT said, this is a business decision. I'm going to go play with Tiger at the old course instead of grind it out and trying to make the cut at the Renaissance Club, right? So that was a long-winded way of saying I'm putting some stock into it, but I'm definitely willing to forgive some guys like Justin Thomas, for example.
Yeah, 100%. And the other person who kind of meets that criteria is Jordan Spieth, who gained over 3 strokes ball striking again last week, and he's been playing really well. So we'll dive into players in a minute. But so we mentioned that obviously three putt avoidance, off the tee, approach playing around the green. How much emphasis, or where are you placing your emphasis this week? Are you placing all in approach play, or?
Yeah, so I think around the green is a tough one at St. Andrews, because I think a lot of the shots that you have to hit around the green on the PGA Tour are so incredibly different from the around the green shots that you're going to have to hit at St. Andrews. I mean, even just the surface of it and the strategy involved with chipping to slow greens as opposed to chipping to fast greens. I mean, this, you've played, because I imagine there's a bunch of parkland courses in Ireland too. And like I was getting on the Irish Open the other week for, I think it's a travesty that they have that at a Jack Nicklaus course, but you understand how different the types of shots that you have to play when you're playing a links golf course versus when you're playing like a tree-lined parkland course with thicker rough around the greens and deep bunkers with this white sand and fast greens. It's just very different. So for me, I'm not looking at any traditional around the green metrics. If I was going to, I'd probably look at firm and fast courses where at least you're having to hit off of tight lies. But I think like 3-putt avoidance is probably the best you're going to do. Like it's not the best. There's no perfect way to measure lag putting, right? Because 3-putt avoidance doesn't necessarily measure how good you are of a lag putter. How many times have you have a 50-foot putt and you put it to 4 feet and you miss the 4-footer versus, you have a 50-foot putt and you put it to 15 feet and then you make the 15-footer, right? That goes in as the same thing, but it's not helping you determine who's a good lag putter, right? So I think for me, like the best way the best stat, and it's still imperfect, that I would use would probably be scrambling, because at least what scrambling can do is it can help me identify the players that are best at just getting the ball in the hole, right? Like scrambling is putting you in a position where you're off the green in where you should be for the green in regulation. How many times are you able to salvage par? Now, sometimes that shot's from 90 yards, sometimes that shot's from 50 yards, sometimes that shot's from 2 yards off the green, but it's a good way to measure who the best players are at getting the ball in the hole. So that I think is probably the best that you can do in that sense.
Yeah. Okay. And then just I completely agree with you around the green, because there's kind of, to me, there's like, everybody says there's 2 types of courses, but to me, there's like 3. There's like your parkland that has just rough all around the greens. And then there's actual parkland that has kind of like runoff areas. So
right.
The example that I'll give is just like Adair Manor, just because I was there last week, but it has like these steep runoffs, and all of a sudden you're chipping off like a 1/4 of an inch of grass, and you have to try and clip it off the surface. And then there's the links course, which is like kind of the other extreme. It's not a parkland with the rough around the green. It's the other extreme of the steep runoffs, and you have to be able to imagine your shots. And that's why Jordan Spieth has done so well, because he can pick points where he can land. He could take a 50-degree wedge or a 60-degree wedge and still manage to get up and down from around the green. Whereas if you take I don't know, maybe like a Victor Hovland, who's just taking a 60-degree everywhere he goes and try and chomp down or put it back in the stance or flop it up in the air. Whereas these short game specialists, that's why they do tend to thrive on these links courses. And that's why we'll get into our picks in 2 minutes now, but that's why like Cameron Smith is there, because he has that around the green magic that if the wind howls and he gets a gust of wind and he misses it 10 yards short and he has to come over this mound on the front of a links green, he can do that because he's like, okay, I can just take a 50-degree and bump it into here and then let it run out for 10 or 15 feet. Whereas a lot of players don't have that imagination because they just play PGA Tour all year round. That's no dig at the PGA Tour. That's just the way it is.
That's just the way it is, right? And again, you said it well. It's not a dig at the PGA Tour, but the style of PGA Tour golf is very contrived. It's a lot of target golf, right? It's a lot of TrackMan golf. It's a lot of driving range shots. St. Andrews, you do not have a lot of driving range shots. It's very hard to simulate the types of situations that you're going to be in at a course like St. Andrews. It's not the type of thing where it's like, okay, I can hit a 7-iron, 187 yards in the air with a 2-yard draw and this amount of ball speed and this spin right? Like it's more about imagining the types of shots. And, one of the buzzwords that's probably going to get overused this week a ton is like creativity and stuff like that and imagination, but it's true, right? And it's hard for us to measure those types of things, but you kind of have to. The best way to do it is like watch some of the Open Championship films in the past, watch some of these tournaments in the past, and kind of do your best to try and envision what types of players have the types of shots that allow them to succeed here, because it's a lot harder for, a stat guy like me to model some of this stuff out as much on a week like this.
Yeah, definitely. And I think when we're just getting to it there, and we'll dive into players now, but like a little bit about stats, like I know you mentioned that you're watching Zach Johnson's 2015 earlier, and I was actually watching it too, but I couldn't get over the number of tree putts or like the putts from around 100 feet and him trying to avoid tree putts. I think it was like, I don't want to get it wrong, like the 6th screen or something, and he was like 100 feet away and he knocks it up to 4 feet. And I think maybe that's something that people are overlooking this week. It's like tree putt is obviously very important, but it's also, you're going to have a lot of putts from 5 or 6 feet, whereas a lot of other PGA Tour events, you just lag it up to 2 or 3 feet. Like there's a lot more surface, there's a lot more contours to this green than a typical PGA Tour event. I think that's going to be very important, and slow greens as well than usual. So I think you're spot on the money there. Just if we start going through the field, Annie, we won't go through the whole field, but I'll just name out maybe the top 12 players, and I'd love to get your thoughts on them. These are all the lads below 30-1, bet 365. I should go to first 6 first, just kind of like the favorites. McIlroy, Schauffele, Spieth, Rahm, Scheffler, Fitzpatrick. Anybody there stands out to you, or anybody there that you're like, hell no?
Well, Rory's going to win this thing, right, Mark? So here's the challenge that we face with Rory from a betting perspective, right? And I've been thinking in my head that Rory was going to win this tournament since I did a major championship preview in December. The problem with Rory is that for me, if you want to be a responsible bettor, it's fun to just bet everyone. But for me, if I bet Rory, that takes me out of the game for pretty much everyone else in the field, except maybe somebody in that 100-1 range, right? And so the thing that you have to weigh is, how confident are you in Rory? Is Rory, 3 or 4x times likely to win this tournament than a 3-pack of someone like Cam Smith, Sam Burns, Tony Finau, Jordan Spieth, right? Because you're basically weighing, do you just want Rory, or do you want this group of 3 or 4 other players that all possess a legitimate chance to win? And that's the issue that I'm having so far on Monday morning. I have not made a decision, to be honest with you, but gun to my head, if you're just asking me, remove odds from the equation, who's going to win this tournament? And I know it's maybe a bit of a cop-out answer because he is the favorite, but it just feels like Rory's time, doesn't it, man?
It does, and it feels like I feel like there'd be way more hype about Rory only for the fact that he skipped the 2015 version.
Right.
Like if he played 2015 version and he finished top 10, people would be like, this is a great fit for Rory. This is his chance. Whereas he didn't play, so he's not there. So he doesn't, people could argue he doesn't have the course history. But, and I heard this mentioned on your pod, like the thing about Rory is there's the strong Augusta comparison. I don't know a stat off my head. It's like every winner has had like a top 3 at Augusta.
Top 3, yeah.
Every winner's had a top 3 at Augusta at St. Andrews. So, and Rory, as we all know, has that unbelievable record at Augusta National Golf Club without the actual win. But the thing about Rory, when was the first tournament? Was it Canadian where he started dialing in his wedges? Because everybody's giving out about his wedges for ages, and then
which is the thing I pushed back on for a while. But yeah, Canadian, he was absolutely dialed with his wedges, and his wedges were really good at Southern Hills too, by the way.
Yeah, and I'd say ever since then, it just feels like he's turned this corner and he looks so much more comfortable. And they always emphasize this in the Sky Sports broadcast over here, but like he seems to be in a place where he's not trying to hit these full shots. He's not trying to hit a 58 degree or 60 degree fully. He's actually holding off this sawed-off finish through, which is going to be, it's good in other courses, but it's going to be even better at the Open Championship where if the breeze gets up a little bit. So to me, on a course where we're going to emphasize within 100 or 125 yards, and Rory has the Augusta comparison, his putter's been pretty good this year as well, and he has around the green game, which a lot of people kind of bypass. They always like picking his great driving ability and his great approach play. He also has the unbelievable around the green game, and yeah, like I honestly I love his chances this week. In terms of betting, like I'll be honest, I'm not a massive gambler. I always look at the figures or the numbers, but I'm not a massive one on it. But if I was going for it, I'd really find it hard to avoid that whatever 10-1 number or 11-1 number if you're going for it.
Right. Okay. So 2 really quick things on Rory, because I know there are a bunch of other guys that we want to talk about, but you touched on it a little bit. The thing that people miss with Rory, they always talk about his driver because he is a generational driver of the ball, right? He is probably a top 5 driver of the golf ball of all time. But because he's so good at that skill, people don't really talk about anything else with him. And honestly, Rory is incredibly. He never gets mentioned with the Jordan Spieth, Cameron Smith crowd in terms of his love for creativity, right? And his ability inside 125 yards. Over a large sample size, Rory McIlroy is one of the best bunker players of our generation. I know that doesn't sound like something that anyone gives Rory credit for, but I look at these stats all day. Rory is truly one of the greatest bunker players of our generation, and it never gets talked about at all. And, I've been dying on this hill for a while now that the wedge narrative is overrated too. And to me, Rory is from that same Jordan Spieth mold. Like, why would you go to Ballybunion to play golf with Tiger, right? He is so enamored with the game of golf and the romantic aspect of golf. And you listen to him in an interview and he loves talking about visualizing shots and understanding the game at a deeper level. And I don't think he gets enough credit for that the way that Jordan Spieth does, because he seems like a TrackMan golfer in the sense that he is so, like, if you watched Rory on the driving range, you would say, okay, this is the greatest guy of all time. But I don't think he gets enough credit for that creativity aspect that he has to his game the way that a Jordan Smith or Cameron Smith does. The other last thing that I'll mention on Rory, I don't know if you saw this. He did an interview with Kyle Porter this morning.
I didn't read it yet. I have it ready to go.
Right. So the reason why, he said something that was interesting to me. Kyle Porter asked, what would be a bigger deal to you, winning the Open at St. Andrews or winning the Masters? And he said winning the Masters. And I think a lot of people would look at that and like Rory's chances less this week. And I would go the other way. I think Rory places so much pressure on himself, right? He's so introspective. He has such a sense of context and history in place, right? You listen to his interviews, you watch how he responds at the Ryder Cup, and he says all these things in his interviews as well. And when you really get him talking, I love the fact that doesn't seem like he's putting a ton of pressure on himself this week. I mean, Porter asked him a ton of questions about what does this mean to you, all this stuff, and he was kind of like, you know what? I'm playing great. I'm just in the mindset right now where I'm going to go play golf. And my biggest worry with Rory is there too much noise surrounding Rory, right? Like you will never forget Royal Portrush, where there was all this noise surrounding Rory and he hits the ball out of bounds on the first tee, right? And it seems like to me that Rory has gotten a lot better over the last couple of years of understanding how to take the pressure off of himself a little bit. And he's got a lot on his plate now with all the live stuff going on. But to me, I was really encouraged by kind of reading between the lines with some of the things he's been talking about recently.
Yeah, I completely agree. And you just took my line away. Like, I think Rory cares. Fair enough, he might want to win the Masters just to get to Grand Slam. But if he wasn't going for the Grand Slam, I think the Open would be his one that he would want. Because, and you mentioned, and I have it wrote down here, the Open at Portrush, I've never seen a man grind so hard. There's only 2 times in our life where we've seen Rory cry: the Ryder Cup and Royal Portrush. And he just loves the history, the context, being in front of a home crowd, and he hammers it off. He hammers it out of bounds. But that Friday, it was remarkable to watch him grind and try to hold the chip at the 18th green. I remember it was the 9th or the 18th. Insane. But yeah, we'll keep it there because we could talk for another 2 hours about how great Rory is. So okay, God, there's a few lads here. Schauffele, Spieth, Rahm, Scheffler, Fitzpatrick. Anybody else here? I know you're a big Schauffele guy.
Yeah. How can you not? I mean, the similarities between Xander right now and Scotty right before he won the Masters, it's hard to not think about those things, right? And it makes a lot of sense, right? These guys that are perennial top 10 machines, especially at majors, Scotty Scheffler, Xander Schauffele, like there's been no question how good these guys are. They just weren't winning. And a lot of winning in golf is getting on the right side of variance, right? So there was no question to me about Xander's capability to win. People are like, the guy's a loser, all that stuff. I never really understood that because this is a guy that puts himself in the mix. I mean, the guy's 28 years old and he's finished in the top 15 in over half the majors that he's played in over a 20 tournament sample size. That's elite. I mean, that is elite play. You're going to be hard pressed to find a modern player who's been more consistent on the biggest stage. So it was never a question to me whether Xander would start catching the right side of variance and start winning golf tournaments at some point. The issue that I have with Xander this week is the same issue that I have with Rory, right? Is if you're going to go all in on Xander, he's your guy, right? And it's going to severely limit the other options that you have around the board. I mean, I'm seeing market price of Xander around 14-1 right now. So I guess you have a little bit more leeway with the Xander 14-1 than you would with a Rory 9 or 10-1. But the issue that I'm having with Xander is I don't like backing golfers at their peak market price, right? Like if you're buying in on Xander right now, you're buying a stock at its all-time high. Right. And I'm going to try and identify players that maybe you're catching their stock at a little bit lower, but man, Xander, Rory, final group, man, nothing would make me happier.
Yeah. I think the thing I love about Xander as well is just how consistent he is in every category. Like he's just this man that everybody relies on all the time. Like he's top 45 in all strokes gained categories this season. And I think last year he's even in top 40 in all strokes gained categories. He's 7th from 100 to 125 yards, 9th from 125 to 150. No idea what else he is, but that's just what I was looking up for this week. But
yeah, he's top 50 all this. I mean, he is just so incredibly consistent around the board.
So good. And I completely agree with you in the Scheffler comparison as well, is that he needed just one win. And I know he won the Olympics and he won the team event, but to actually go and win for the first time since 2019 was massive for him. And then obviously wins last week again. So I don't know if I can see him winning an Open Championship though. I don't know why. I can't really see it. I think it's exactly what you're saying, kind of that the peak is there and his game is peaking at the right time, but has he peaked too much already? And overcoming all this for a man who's not used to winning, the emotional charge from all of this, winning twice all of a sudden on tour, does he get it done at a major? Then to me, he doesn't. But I said the same about Scottie Scheffler coming into the Masters. So
me too. I said the same thing, and I have the same concern with you. I mean, I remember I went to the U.S. Open at Torrey Pines, and the fever pitch around Xander that week was at a pretty all-time high. I think it's actually probably higher this week, to be honest with you. But hometown kid, he's going back to Torrey Pines. He grew up playing this golf tournament, and you see him on the putting green on Tuesday, and he's trying a new putting grip. And it's like, Xander, you've been talking and preparing for this tournament your entire life. You really think this is the time to try arm lock? And that's the thing that I worry about with Xander sometimes is there too much pressure on him right now? And now he's 14-1. Do I still think, even how good the recent form has been, do I still think that Xander has a better chance to win this tournament than Jordan Spieth? I'd probably say no, to be honest with you. And maybe that's biased based on all of my idea of Spieth at Open Championships. But the issue with Xander is kind of all price related for me. I still think he's a great fit at St. Andrews.
Definitely. If we're going to, and I've heard you kind of beating this drum for a while, you're a big fan of Patrick Cantlay. What chances do you give him this week?
I give him good chances. I like Cantlay a lot. I don't know if he's going to make my betting card, especially if I decide to go all in on Rory. Then Cantlay, I'll certainly be out of Cantlay. But to me, I've always thought that this guy doesn't have the game for majors thing with Cantlay was completely overblown. I mean, he just finished 14th at the U.S. Open. He also finished 12th at Carnoustie. He's only played in about 4 or 5 Open Championships, but he's made the cut in nearly every single one, right? So I think Cantlay, to me, he's more of somebody that I'll be targeting in DraftKings because I still think that he will be under-owned based on what he should be. But I don't know if I'll be able to get there from an outright perspective. What about you? Is he someone you're considering heavily?
No, I'm gonna beat in the drum just exactly what you said there. I just can't do it because of the major record. Like, for a player who's finished every year in the top 10 in the World Golf rankings since 2019, they've finished. I know he's moved outside that during the year, but he hasn't registered a top 10 since the PGA Championship in 2019. There's a difference between going and winning the Tour Championship compared to a major. Like, I know that the Northern Trust is like the strongest field, and he could probably compete well there. But major championships just have a different aura about them. There's way more pressure on players. These are the 4 competitions every single year that matter. The prize money is obviously very good, but there is the whole context. And when we're talking about Rory, but I think Patrick Cantlay is a very good understanding of just how much this would mean to win the Open Championship. I think when you listen to his press conferences, he's very, very insightful. He understands, he's knowledgeable, but I can't get there just because he hasn't turned up. And by turned up, I know he's finished T14, T15. But if he hasn't registered a top 10 in the last 3 years, it's just a no-go for me.
So let me ask you about kind of this next tier, because Cantlay's kind of in that group with, Cam Smith, Zalatoris, Hideki, of those guys that maybe aren't the top favorites, like the Rahm, Scheffler, Rory's. Who do you think has the best chance in kind of that middle tier of next guys? Because I think there are a lot of really appealing options down there.
Yeah, so I think one player who's really, really impressed me is Matt Fitzpatrick.
Right.
I thought his win at the US Open, I think that at the PGA Championship, obviously he had a very, very poor round 4, and he came out and he put up this emotional tweet and post on Instagram and Twitter and how much he was disappointed. And to most people, that would seem petty. It's like, oh, this chap doesn't have the mental game for it. But that Sunday at the US Open, he just seemed so solid, and I was so impressed with the way he handled himself. And Billy Foster's going around with him, and the two of them, this is a relationship that's evolved. The Masters, Billy Foster tells me just get on with it. just to like hit the ball. The PGA Championship, then he goes has poor Sunday. The US Open, he goes and wins, and he looks really steady throughout the tournament. And then obviously just going to harp on, and I know it was only kind of an exhibition, but the Adair Manor JP McManus Pro-Am, I was so impressed with how he handled himself around there. I watched him for the first 6 holes, and it's easy enough off the tee, but on approach play, it's pretty tough.
Yeah.
And just to see him hit fairway green on repetition, and a man who does that, and if he gets to put a rolling hot at an Open Championship, I think he's a really good chance. But the problem with, and I think I touched on this with Shane Lowry as well, is I think they prefer tougher conditions. They prefer that if the wind is, to me, I don't think the wind is going to howl this week, but they prefer if the wind is howling. And we saw this with Shane Lowry round 1 and 2. He at the Masters, he was really, really good. And then the wind kind of died down. It got a little bit easier, and he kind of faded off a little bit on the Saturday. And same Matt Fitz. I just feel like they need these tougher conditions. To me, the person who's the all-round game is Will Zalatoris. I think he's absolutely exceptional. And I hate the narrative now so much of the putter. I hate it. I know it's poor. I know it's not aesthetically pleasing, but I don't have the stat off the top of my head, but whatever his strokes gained putting performance at majors, he gained like 12 or 13 strokes at last three majors.
It's insane. He's averaging 1.6 strokes per round putting at majors, which would make him, to put that into context, Mark, the number 1 putter on tour gains like 0.98.
Yeah.
So he is putting elite is an understatement with how he's been putting at majors.
Yeah, and I also love the way he carries himself in the golf course. To me, he has like a very similar vibe to Scheffler, where he goes around with his caddy and he's kind of laughing, and you make a bogey and he'll laugh about it. And it's not that he's not like super competitive or anything. It's just that that's his way of handling with a mistake or an error, and he'll make a bogey and he'll be like, "Oh, let's move on, let's get on with it." And I think he's a real grinder. I think he can. Just because he hasn't won on tour, I don't think he should be dismissed, because we said the exact same about Scheffler 3 months ago. And we keep harping on about that drum.
No, 100%. The one pushback I would give you on Zalatoris is that, to me, Zalatoris, and you could say the exact same thing about Jon Rahm, actually, but to me, Zalatoris possesses his biggest advantage on a golf course where he has a mid to long iron in his hand a lot of the time. Right. And that there is a huge penalty for not being a really, really elite mid to long iron, because that specific skill set of elite mid to long iron play that you see a lot at the US Open, or a course like Arnold Palmer, or a course like Torrey Pines, like those are the courses that you want to play Will Zalatoris, Victor Hovland, and Jon Rahm at, because those guys are the best in the world at separating themselves from the pack when they have a mid to long iron in their hands. I don't know how many stock mid to long iron shots you are going to have at St. Andrews this week, which is part of the reason I don't love Rahm, which is part of the reason I don't love Hovland, and which is part of the reason I don't love Zalatoris, which doesn't mean that those guys can't win or can't play well. I just think that St. Andrews doesn't necessarily do the best job of accentuating their best skill set, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I get the argument. I won't be going near Zalatoris this week, and I'm not backing down from this, but I don't think he's a great chance this week. But I think in terms of that kind of mid-tier, who's the next to win a major, I honestly think he's like, if we were discussing this in a week's time, I'd say Will Zalatoris. It's just the fact that this doesn't really suit him as much. The other player that's kind of intriguing as we move down the board would be, actually, let's talk about Justin Thomas for 1 minute. What's thoughts on Justin Thomas? I'm not sure how I feel about it.
He's a tough one. And he's a guy that the numbers actually starting to drift on him, right? So I've seen a lot of people hop on a 21 to 1, 22 to 1, 23 to 1 Justin Thomas this morning. I can't argue with that at all. That's the old, I mean, Justin Thomas, when he won the Players 2 years ago, he was 20 to 1 and a very popular bet. And that kind of started the anytime JT drifts to 20, bet him. And that's what I did at the PGA Championship. There was an enhanced win offering that put him at 20 to 1. And, you know, I bet him. So I'm not going to fault anybody for betting JT at 20-1, 22-1. The issue that I have with Justin Thomas is he's still yet to really show it on a true lengths course, right? I think his best Open Championship finish ever was at Portrush, and he finished like 12th or 11th or something like that. He's got a couple 8th or 9th place finishes at the Scottish Open, but again, I don't really put Renaissance Club in the true lengths category. I understand he's playing practice rounds with Tiger. He's probably got some pretty good inside knowledge at this point, but there's so many good players at the top and you can't bet them all, that you have to find something you can hang on to with why you wouldn't play them. And for me, I like JT a lot. I just don't like him more than I like Spieth or Rory, right? And you kind of have to pick one of these guys. So I got nothing against JT. I just don't know if I like him as much as Spieth or Rory or Cam.
Yeah, I saw the exact same thing. That obviously we're both on Twitter, but whenever JT falls to 20-1, just bet him. I find it so crazy that he's the PGA champion and he's fallen 20-1, and similar to Colin Morikawa, who fell to 33-1, and he's the defending Open champion. These guys can just turn it on. The only reservation is, and when I was at the Pro-Am, I couldn't tweet because the mobile coverage was deplorable, so I couldn't post anything. But I watched him for 3 holes, and he was missing fairways in places that you shouldn't miss fairways. It was the 8th hole, he missed it short. He hooked it left of a bunker, and I didn't see anybody else over there. And then he missed the green, and he made an unbelievable up and down from the bunker. And then he missed a cut last week. And I just think between those two, now I know that the JP Pro-Am is an exhibition, and I'm not going to deny that's no competitive real spirit there. But between the two of them, I just can't do it if he's a miscut, and I didn't like him at the Pro-Am, even though I think he shot 5 under on the second day or something. It just didn't look that comfortable with his game. So I think I'm passing on that one as well. Okay, I heard you mention. Actually, no, I want to mention somebody else first, because I'm not sure if Brian Kirshner is still in the chat, but I think he's a big Cameron Smith guy this week. Is that right?
Big Cameron Smith guy. Me and Kirshner, you tend to go head to head on a lot of things, but I don't have a bad word to say about Cam Smith this week. I like him a lot. I'm trying to figure out the best way to get to him. Again, this all for me is contingent on whether or not I bet Rory, but I saw Cam Smith at 28-1 this morning, and I think that's an incredible number. The thing that I like about Cam Smith is I've compared this course. I think the best that we can do in terms of PGA Tour courses for St. Andrews, in my opinion, is Kapalua. I think if you're trying to get into anything else, you're starting to stretch it just a little bit in terms of the actual architectural integrity with St. Andrews. But in terms of big wide fairways, bunch of awkward wedge distances, slower greens, Kapalua checks the most boxes for me. Cam Smith obviously won there. He's been incredible at the Masters as well. And one thing that I liked a lot about him is his Sunday at the Renaissance Club was really strong from a ball striking perspective. So he didn't hit the ball that great all throughout the week, but I really like looking at the round by round strokes gain and seeing if their ball striking is trending in the right direction. And Cam Smith checks that box of a guy where the ball striking got better as the week went on.
That's a good option for a first round leader. And I completely agree with you. And the other one was that I saw it on the Golf Digest video, that if you want to miss anywhere off tee, you want to miss left. And Cameron Smith, that's his miss, is that he's going to hook it out towards left hand side. I think it was the Players, is on the 16th tee. He hooks it into those trees, and that's kind of his under pressure shot, is that he stands there with the driver and it goes left. And if you're going to miss anywhere off the tee, it's going to be left here. But in terms of approach play, he's 6th from 100 to 125 yards, 31st around the green, and 11th in 3-putt avoidance. And similar to what you said, he won a Kapalua, and the Augusta comparison is there as well. So I'll jump in. If you guys are talking about it over the weekend, CC me in the tweets, and we can get ourselves hyped up if he's there Saturday morning.
Yeah, no, he is. I mean, there again, this middle tier I think is so strong, and I think that's probably why I've been hesitant to pull the trigger on Rory, because there's so many guys that I would be missing out on if I had to go down that route. But yeah, I think Cam is an incredible option this week.
Definitely. Just moving down the leaderboard, then give us like I'll ask you 2 or 3 questions, but give us like 1 or 2 players down the leaderboard, like 40-1 and over, that you're considering or that you have bet already.
Okay, a couple. I mean, Tony Finau, I like a lot. I think you can find Tony Finau in the 50-1 range. I think the best I've seen on him is 55. I love Mark Leishman. I always love Mark Leishman. He was another guy that in December I said, okay, long shot, Mark Leishman and Dylan Fratelli. So I've always kind of had it in my head that, and obviously Leishman, is not, I don't think he's sneaking up on anyone. The guy did lose in a playoff at St. Andrews in 2015, but you want to talk about a guy who Leishman is the type of guy in the 100-1 range where if he shows up on the leaderboard on Sunday, I actually think he can win. Like, he's not the type of guy where I'm like, oh, Leishman's going to eject. He's won a lot of bigger tournaments, whether they be FedEx Cup playoff events or Torrey Pines. He's contended at the Masters and stuff like that. And he's the type of guy that would fit the mold of a little bit of a surprise winner, but you can actually see him winning. And he's one of the best, like lag. A lot of the stats you talked about too, he checks those boxes: lag putting, scrambling, slower greens, all that stuff. And then if you want to go really deep, I mean, you want to talk about a guy who's 300-1 and contended at the Masters before and was 5th at Royal St. George's, is Dylan Fratelli. And so I don't know how big you are in DraftKings, but if you want a guy at 6,800 who I think can finish top 5 here, who hit the ball unbelievably last week at the Scottish, it's Dylan Fratelli.
Okay. I haven't looked at Dylan Fratelli too much, I'll be honest.
I don't think many people have.
So I think you're in the minority there. But in terms of Mark Leishman, yeah, I did when I started these like Instagram lives or whatever, I did like a preview pod back in March or something, and Mark Leishman was actually my pick as well. The only concern is that obviously he's missed 3 out of the last 4 cuts, I think. But like, he has the course history at Augusta, and he finished runner-up in 2015, and like at 110-1 for. I completely agree with you. If I saw him at top of the leaderboard, I wouldn't be that shocked.
No,
like I'd be like, Mark Leishman, like, fair enough. He's a big name. It's not like you're looking at a Haotong Lee or whoever else is around the 100-1 range. Like Robert McIntyre. Although Robert McIntyre is actually a very interesting name as well. He's had like 3 top 10s in a row at the Open Championship.
Right. And been good at the Masters too, by the way. I think he's got back-to-back top 25s at Augusta as well.
Yeah. That's interesting. I probably haven't gone as big as you. But I do want to ask you about one player that's kind of in the big odds. But I think Fleetwood's interesting. He finished runner-up at the Dunhill in 2018. I don't know I know you're big on Fleetwood a few weeks ago. I don't know if you're still big on him or if you're kind of gone off the bandwagon.
Oh, I'm huge on Fleetwood.
Okay.
My only issue with Tommy is, they're on to him now. The best number that I've seen on Tommy is like 35-1. And I don't think Tommy should be 35-1 at a major. I think Tommy should be 50-1-ish at a major. I don't think that he should be ahead of Tony Finau or Sam Burns or or Dustin Johnson. I like Finau a lot. I'm hoping that the betting number drifts a little bit. He's definitely somebody that I'll be going to in DraftKings. He looked great at the Renaissance Club for the most part. I mean, he gained in all 4 categories, I believe, which was the same thing that he did at the PGA Championship. So his game is kind of rounding into form. And the thing, when Tommy was at his best was when Tommy was driving the ball great. And he drove the ball great at Renaissance Club. And obviously, links golf, I think he's had all the success at the Dunhill links. The U.S. Open that he almost won, Shinnecock, is more of a linksy golf course, right? He was second at Royal Portrush, right? So I think these are the types of spots that you want to deploy Tommy. Do you think he can win? Like, do you see him holding the trophy? I'd almost be more surprised if I think Tommy has like a better shot to finish second than Mark Leishman this week, but I almost would be less surprised if Mark Leishman won than if Tommy actually won the tournament.
That is a hell of a take. All right, I think if I took the number out of it, like if I took 35-1 out of it,
right,
I think I could see Tommy Fleetwood winning.
Oh man, be so sick.
I like, and I'm so gutted because like I think he was like a much higher number recently, but like just see exactly what you said. Like, Tommy Fleetwood was like his ceiling used to be so high, and in the last 2 years he fell off. There was a time where we were talking about Tommy Fleetwood winning, like, I know it's European Tour, but like every event on the European Tour, he was like winning 16-1 range. And yeah, it feels like the last few years he's just fallen away. But if he was going to get his first win on the PGA Tour, similar to a Louis, I think he'd do it at the Open Championship in his home course with the home, in his not home course, but in his like home country. With like a Great Britain crowd, I think that's the one place where I would. So I wouldn't be overly surprised to see him, and I think I definitely give him a better chance than Mark Leishman, 100%. I wouldn't stray with you on that one. I would stray with you on that one.
He does kind of fit the mold of Louis, Matthew Fitzpatrick, Shane Lowry, where you almost think that their best chance to win on the PGA Tour is at a major, right? Has Shane Lowry won on the PGA Tour outside of his Open win? I'm not sure about that. I can't.
He won in 2016 at the WGC Bridgestone.
That's right. Good call. Yeah, he won at Firestone. But yeah, I don't. My whole thing, Mark, is like I've had so much prosperity recently with all these Xander wins, and I had this big bet on Justin Thomas at the PGA. Like, I don't know if I deserve a Tommy win at the Open. You know, I feel like all my hopes and dreams are going to come crashing down this week. It's like, it feels to me like Rahm is going to win this tournament because I've just been running so good with my guys.
Is Martin Laird in the field?
You know, he's not. And trust me, Mark, if he was, we'd be talking about him.
Because Andy, like you know, I listen to your podcast every week, and it's like every week it's like Fleetwood. It was Martin Laird for ages, and then I couldn't get off, and then I was hooked, and I was addicted to him. So I think that's why, maybe that's where my love for Fleetwood comes. But I think, okay, we'll talk about two other players here that probably don't have a chance, but you can give me your quick 20-second take, and then I'll ask you top 20 or not. Tiger, yes or no? And let's say, I don't want to say win because I think that's far-fetched. Think he finishes top 40?
No, I don't.
Okay, I agree.
I think he makes the cut and really struggles on Saturday and Sunday.
That was my next question. Do you think he makes a cut? Do you think he retires this week?
No, because I don't think that there's any value in retiring from golf. There's no, it's not like football where there's contracts or anything like that. So you can, what does even retired mean in golf, right? It's like Tiger could play twice next year. Tiger could play 3 or 4 times next year. He's retired from being a competitive PGA Tour pro, but I don't think he'll retire from, I think he'll play in more major championships. I don't know. This might be his last time playing the old course. So I don't know if he'll be playing in 5 years.
Okay. I agree with everything you said, but I'm not so eager on him making the cut.
That's fair.
Yeah. We'll briefly move on here. Bryson at 120-1. This is the last player I want to ask about, just because he's 120-1. Do you think he has any chance this week?
No, because I think a lot of people think that Bryson has this massive advantage on this course because he hits the ball a long way off the tee. Bryson is so bad inside 125 yards. I mean, you want to talk about a TrackMan golfer, like Bryson, all of his wedges and his long irons are the same length. At St. Andrews, you have to hit all these little weird shots that he's not practicing at a simulator in Dallas. I don't like the fit for Bryson at all. I'd rather, if we're talking live guys, like I really like Patrick Reed. I would rather bet Patrick Reed 100 times out of 100 over Bryson this week.
Fair. Okay. All right, we're gonna just for the last minute, we're gonna run through. I'll run through 5 guys, and you can tell me top 20 or not. They're kind of from the middle tier.
Okay.
Just say yes or no. Tommy or Dustin Johnson.
Yes.
Tyrrell Hatton.
No.
Louis Hazen.
No.
Brooks.
No.
Sam Burns.
Yes.
All right, 3 more. Hideki.
No.
Neiman.
No, but that hurts.
Oh. Hovland?
There we go. Sorry, I lost you for a second. Hovland? No.
Okay. I think I agree with all those except the Tyrrell Hatton and the Neiman one. I think I love both of them. I think what's killing me about Tyrrell Hatton right now is, and I meant to bring this up, was he was like 66-1 over the weekend. Or somebody sent me a screenshot last week. He was 66-1, and now he's gone down to 40-1, and he has unbelievable Dunhill links record, which I know is only 2 rounds. He's like won the Dunhill twice. He finished runner up there in 18 and 21. I think this just suit him pretty well. But 40-1, I don't know. I haven't even looked at my betting card. I don't even know if I'll bet. But if I was betting, I don't know if I'd bet Tyrrell.
Okay, real quick question, because I know we're getting up there in time. But who has a better chance of winning, Hatton or Fleetwood?
I knew this was coming. I knew. I think I'll give it to Hatton. Just because.
Interesting. Okay.
Just because of that Dunhill links. And when I was looking at the leaderboard for the Dunhill links earlier, just like the last 5 years, he's been in like the top 2 or something like that on 4 occasions, or last 6 years or something like that, something crazy. I think Tyrrell, and I just like his chances a little bit this week, and I love him as a person.
Yeah, I mean, my one issue with Hatton is I don't like how he poo-poos the architecture of some of the greatest courses in the world. I don't like he's talking shit about Southern Hills and Augusta and St. George's in Canada, which is one of the best courses in Canada. So I'll be interested. I mean, it seems like St. Andrews isn't on his hit list because he's had some success there before. So I think we're probably safe. Yeah, unless he misses the cut, then he's going to change his tune.
It'll be the worst course in the world. Sweet. Andy, I think we'll wrap it up there. Talk to us. Actually, I want to ask you a little bit about your golf. What's your plan? I know you've gone, I've listened to broadcast again, and I know you've gone to a few lessons and you're kind of peaking at the moment. Tell us a bit about your own personal golf life. I know you're playing a good few courses at the moment.
I'm feeling pretty good, Mark, to be honest with you. I've hit 29 out of my last 38 greens. I can't putt at all. I mean, I played golf on Saturday with Brian and Saul Goodman, and it was like an embarrassing putting performance. My speed control was horrendous. You really have to work hard to shoot 76 hitting 14 greens. So if I can figure out the putting, I'm feeling pretty dangerous. To me, it's all about, Mark, I have these 2 big golf trips coming up, Ireland in September and Bandon in October. And I just want my game to be in the best place for those. And dude, Ireland's going to be, we got to talk off air too about that. Cause we're all set with Ballybunion and Tralee and Lahenge and all those places. So September 4th, I'll be there, buddy.
I'm more than happy to discuss that. I think I'm hoping to make the journey down to Kerry at the end of July. I have a semi-open invite there, so I'm excited for that. But so just last thing about your own golf game. What aspect of it is it? The approach play, the off the tee, the short game? What's brought you to this kind of 14 out of 18 greens?
So I think the player comp for me that Kirshner gave me is Luke List. My ball striking has always been really strong. Luke List has a good short game too, by the way, and I have a good short game. No, but I've been playing golf my whole life. I've been competing my whole life. My whole childhood was playing junior events. So I have a really I have a good understanding of the golf swing, and I studied the golf swing, and my swing has always been good. It's basically just reteaching myself how to shoot good scores again, right? Because, and this is, not to compare myself to Rory McIlroy, but one thing that McIlroy has talked about a lot is this loss of innocence when you get into a later stage in your career. And I feel that, man. When I was 16 years old and I was shooting in the low 70s and high 60s, I was fearless. It was driver off of every single tee. I was not thinking about, oh, you're going to shank this chip. You're going to miss it. Like, I wasn't thinking about any of that stuff. And now your soul gets hardened because you've hit these bad shots. You've had these rounds where you've shot 85 under pressure. And now it's in the back of your mind where you're like, oh, I have the ability. Yes, I have the ability to shoot 71, but I also have the ability to shoot 85. And so I've just been working a lot on not playing golf shot and playing golf, if that makes sense, and just trusting my abilities and kind of going out there and playing fearlessly has been kind of my biggest obstacle.
You sound like somebody that should be playing on the Champions Tour, Andy. You sound like you're 60 years of age. No, that's sweet. All right, Andy, just before we go, plug your stuff. I know you put out unbelievable content every week. Plug it in here. We give you 25 minutes. You can go ahead.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. I got a lot of stuff, going on this week, obviously for majors. Podcast with Dave Tyndall should be out in the next couple hours. And then I'm doing a big DraftKings podcast with Kobe Dubose, who was actually just at St. Andrews like a month ago. So that should be really fun. And then, all my stuff on rickrungood.com. If you got any questions for me, best place to reach me, Rick Run Good Slack channel. Use promo code Andy. And I'll be on Tap and Birdie tomorrow night. I'm super excited for that. And just a bunch of other random radio and guest appearances over the next couple of days. ADP Lack Sports on Twitter. You'll probably be able to find everything there.
Yeah. That's Andy for you. Just on like TV and national TV and radio and whatnot. So, Andy, listen, I know we could sit here for another 2 hours talking about live and random golf stuff and golf journeys and trips, but listen, thanks very much for jumping on. You're a gent and a scholar, one of the good guys on Twitter, and a pleasure having you on.
Appreciate that, Mark. Anytime, man. You just let me know, and hope to see you in Ireland in a couple months as well.
Sweet. And I've been working on this punchline all week. This was Talking Smack with Andy Lack. Thanks very much, guys. Chat soon.